Close your eyes. Imagine a valley in the south of France. It is the year 1147. The sun has not yet risen. The sky is not black. It is not dark blue. It is that particular shade of nothing, the hour before color returns to the world, when the edges of things are soft, when the line between the stone wall and the shadow beside it is not quite clear. The air is cold, not viciously cold, not the kind of cold that bites or stings, just cold in the way that stone is cold, a steady, patient, indifferent cold that has been sitting there all night, seeping into the walls and the floors and the wooden benches of the church, waiting for someone to arrive and notice it. A bell rings. It does not ring loudly. It does not clang or crash. It rings with a low, round, unhurried tone, a sound that has rung at this same hour, in this same pitch, every single night for decades. The bell hangs in a small tower above the church, and its rope descends through a hole in the ceiling into a narrow room where an old monk named Brother Anselus stands with his hand still gripping the rope. He does not ring it violently. He pulls, releases, pulls, releases. The sound spreads out across the valley like ripples across still water, slow ripples, wide ripples, ripples that carry no urgency, only a kind of ancient insistence. This is vigils, the first of the 8 canonical hours, the first obligation of a Benedictine monk's day. And it is not morning, not yet. The monks of this abbey, the Abbey of St. Gilles, a modest Benedictine house of perhaps 40 brothers, have been asleep for perhaps 3 hours. They went to bed at roughly 9 in the evening, and now at approximately 2 in the morning, the bell calls them back. Our monk is named Brother Elias. He is not young, but he is not old. He is somewhere in the middle stretch of a man's life, perhaps 34, perhaps 35. He has been in this abbey since he was a boy of 9. He does not remember much of the world outside it. He does not think about the world outside it very much. He thinks about the cold. He thinks about the stone floor beneath his bare feet. He thinks distantly about whether his knees will ache when he kneels this morning, because they have been aching more often lately, and he has been wondering if this is a spiritual matter or simply a matter of damp weather and stone floors and a body growing older. He does not wonder about it with alarm. He wonders about it the way a man wonders about the weather, as a condition to be noted, accepted, and moved through. Let us follow him. Brother Elias rises from his wooden bed in the dormitory. The dormitory is a long room with low stone ceilings. There are perhaps 20 beds in 2 rows, separated by a narrow aisle. Each bed is a simple wooden frame with a straw-filled mattress and a single woolen blanket, thick, coarse, slightly scratchy against the skin, but warm in a solid, dependable way. The straw inside is not new. It was last refreshed in the autumn, and now it has compressed under the weight of a man sleeping on it every night until it has taken on permanently the impression of the body that sleeps there. You can see it in the daytime, each mattress slightly shaped, slightly different, molded to the particular weight and habit of its monk. His feet touch the floor. Brother Elias's mattress has a slight deepening on the left side, where he tends to sleep on his left shoulder. There is a slight compression at the hip, another at the shoulder. The pillow, a small bolster filled with chaff and old linen rags, has flattened considerably over the years. He does not notice any of this. He has slept on this bed for so long that the shape of it is simply the shape of sleeping, the way that the particular weight of the blanket is simply the weight of blankets, the way the smell of the dormitory at night, wool and straw and cold stone, and the faint trace of many human bodies that permeates the walls is simply the smell of being indoors at night. The floor is stone. Everything in this abbey is stone. The walls, the floors, the windowsills, the stairs. Stone that has absorbed the cold of the season and holds it patiently and gives it back to anyone who touches it. The cold moves up through the soles of his feet and into his ankles. He does not flinch. He has been waking to this floor for 25 years. His body simply accepts it. He reaches for his sandals. They are on the floor beside the bed, exactly where he left them. He does not need to look for them. His hand finds them in the dark by the same logic by which a man finds a familiar cup on a familiar shelf, not by searching, but by knowing. The leather is old and soft and shaped now precisely to the contours of his feet in a way that new sandals never are. He slides them on. The cold of the stone is replaced by something merely cool, better. He stands. He is still wearing his habit. Monks sleep in their habits. Benedictine rule permits this, and in winter it would be foolish to do otherwise. The habit is a long tunic of undyed wool, belted at the waist by a strip of leather, and over it a scapula, a length of fabric worn front and back, hanging from the shoulders.
Abbot Raymond is a small man in his 60s who moves with a deliberate economy of motion, each step considered, each action precise. He has the quality that very old, very experienced men sometimes have, of moving through the world without wasting anything on it, without superfluous gesture or expression. He takes his place at the head of the choir. He opens the antiphonary. The pages are thick vellum, cream-colored with age, and they make a sound between a whisper and a rustle as he turns them, a dry, papery sound in the still air of the church. He finds the place. He settles. The candle beside him throws its light across the page, illuminating the 4 red lines of the staff and the black square neumes above them. He is an old man named Abbot Raymond, small, walking with a slight forward lean, as though perpetually moving into a wind that only he can feel. He takes his place. He opens the antiphonary, the great book of chants with its square notation on 4-line stabs in red and black ink on thick vellum pages. The pages rustle. The candle beside him flickers. He begins. Domini labia mea aperies. Lord, open my lips. The plain chant of the night office is unlike other music. There is no instrument to accompany it. There is no rhythm in the modern sense, no regular beat, no time signature. The rhythm is the rhythm of the Latin words themselves, the natural stresses of the language, the breath of the men singing. The melody moves in slow curves, not angular, not dramatic, but following a path through a small range of notes with a kind of patient inevitability, like water following a slope. The melody rises and it falls, and it circles back to where it began, and it rises again. Stone is the ideal material for this kind of music. The hard surfaces reflect the sound rather than absorbing it, and the reflected sound combines with the direct sound to produce a thickening, a richness, an acoustic property that monks and cathedral builders understood intuitively centuries before acoustics became a science. The voices of 40 men singing a single melodic line in a stone church produce a sound that is larger and more complex than any one of those voices alone. The harmonics of the room, the frequencies at which the stone walls naturally resonate, are excited by the voices and contribute their own tones, very quiet, barely audible, present in the way that a bass note in an organ is sometimes more felt than heard. He knows this office by heart. He has known it since childhood. His mouth moves through the words, and his voice follows the melody, and his body does what his body always does in the choir stall, his weight distributed between his feet and the edge of the misericorde, his hands loosely at his sides, his face turned slightly upward in the direction of the altar. He does not think about what he is singing most of the time. The words are in Latin, and his Latin is good, and he understands them, but understanding them in the sense of following their meaning word by word is different from what happens in the choir at 2 in the morning. What happens is something more like absorption. The words pass through him, the melody passes through him. He is the instrument of them rather than their interpreter. His mind, the part not absorbed in the act of singing, wanders slightly. He thinks about the ache in his knees. He thinks about a task he must complete tomorrow in the scriptorium. He notices that the candle in the third sconce on the left is burning lower than the others and will need to be replaced. He returns to the chant. He leaves again. He returns. Psalm 3, Psalm 95, the invitatory antiphon, the hymn, more psalms, the long, slow cascade of psalms that fills the night office, drawn from the cycle of all 150 psalms that the monks sing through in the course of a single week. Brother Elias knows them all, knows where he is in the cycle, knows which psalms will come next. There is a comfort in this knowledge that is not intellectual. It is the comfort of a landscape so familiar that you stop seeing it consciously and instead simply move through it, at home in it in a way that requires no effort and produces no anxiety. This is not failure. This is simply what it is to be a human being singing the night office at 2 in the morning after 3 hours of sleep. Vigils lasts approximately an hour. When it is finished, the monks process out of the choir in silence. Brother Elias returns to the dormitory. He removes his sandals. He lies down. The straw mattress receives his weight. The blanket settles over him. He closes his eyes. It does not come dramatically, not like a wave, not like drowning, not like any metaphor that implies drama or loss. It comes the way familiar things come, steadily, without announcement, simply present when it was not present before. He breathes. The darkness behind his eyes deepens by degrees. The dormitory and its sounds, the faint breathing of other men, the settling of the roof timbers, recede into a background that is not quite sound and not quite silence, and then into nothing at all. The bell rings again at 5. The dormitory is different at this hour, not dramatically, not transformed, but different in a way that is unmistakable to a man who has spent 25 years waking in this room at both hours. At 2 in the morning, the darkness was complete. Now there is a paleness at the narrow windows, not light exactly, but the particular colorless pallor that belongs to the hour before dawn, when the sky is beginning its transition but has not yet committed to morning. He rises again. Same process. Feet, floor, cold, sandals, the night stair, the church. But the church is different at Lord's in a way that is almost impossible to put into words, and is perhaps the reason Lord's has always been Brother Elias's second favorite office. At vigils, the darkness was total. The church was sealed from the world by the night, entirely an interior space, lit only by candles, complete in itself. Now, in the hour before dawn, the windows of the church are beginning to show the same pale grey that is in the dormitory windows. The darkness inside the church is real, but no longer absolute. It is penetrated by this other dark, the outdoor dark of very early morning, in a way that changes the quality of the space. The church is beginning to remember that it has a relationship with the world outside itself. This is Lauds, the office of dawn, and it has a different character from vigils. The psalms chosen for Lauds are the ones about morning, about light returning, about praise at the beginning of a new day. And the darkness outside the church windows is beginning very slowly to warm, the black becoming charcoal, the charcoal becoming grey, the grey picking up the faintest warmth at its edges, not colour yet, just the suggestion of colour, the suggestion of the direction that colour will eventually arrive from. The grey in the windows is deepening, or rather, the grey is clarifying. The colourless pallor is picking up the faintest warmth, barely perceptible, barely there, nothing that could be called colour yet. The stone of the church walls, if you looked at them carefully, has shifted fractionally from pure grey to something that is thinking about being grey-brown. The light from the candles, which at 2 in the morning was the only light, is now in competition, slight competition, easily winning competition, but competition nonetheless, with the early morning light that is beginning to enter through the high windows. The Benedictus rises in the half-dark church. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he has visited and redeemed his people. The melody of it arches slowly and comes back. The voices of 40 men fill the stone space. The sound goes up to the vaulted ceiling and comes back. Brother Elias's voice is not remarkable. He is neither the strongest singer in the community nor the weakest. His voice is a middling baritone, steady, accurate, without distinctive quality, the kind of voice that contributes to a choir without standing out from it. This seems right to him. A voice that stood out would be doing the wrong thing here. The point is the combined sound, the merged sound, the sound that is produced by 40 men singing together and that cannot be produced by any one of them alone. When Lauds ends, he uses the latrines, a row of stone seats over a channel of running water, cold in a way that discourages lingering, and washes his hands and face at the stone trough in the washroom. The water is cold, in the way that water stored in stone vessels in late autumn is cold, deeply, evenly, thoroughly cold, a cold with no bottom to it. The soap is a rough grey block, sitting in a small ceramic dish beside the trough. It is made from tallow, rendered animal fat, combined with lye made from wood ash. The smell is difficult to describe, something between rancid and clean, something that is both of those things simultaneously, the fat smell and the lye smell combined into something that is specific to this soap and nothing else. It lathers in the cold water, but not exuberantly. Cold water is not the best medium for tallow soap. He works the lather over his hands, between his fingers, over the ink stain on the third finger of his right hand that will not come off regardless of how much he washes. He washes his face. The cold water is a complete and total fact. There is nothing partial about it. He dries with the rough linen towel on its iron ring and straightens. He is awake now, fully awake. The day has begun. Before the chapter meeting there is a brief interval, perhaps 15 minutes. Brother Elias uses the latrines, which occupy a small stone building attached to the dormitory by a covered walkway. The walkway is open on one side, and the cold air comes through. His sandals on the stone of the walkway make a quiet, slightly hollow sound, the sound of leather on stone in an enclosed space. The building itself is a row of stone seats, 6 of them, set over a narrow channel in which a diverted portion of the abbey's stream runs continuously. The water carries things away. The smell is present, but not overpowering. The stone seat is cold. He does not linger. In the chapter house, the daily meeting proceeds in 3 parts.
First, a monk reads aloud from the Rule of Saint Benedict, the practical, psychologically intelligent text written in the 6th century that governs every hour of this community's life. It talks about how much the monks should eat, when they should sleep, how to treat guests, what to do when a monk is disobedient, when silence must be observed and when it may be broken. Brother Elias has heard it read aloud perhaps 1,500 times over the course of his life here.
The words still carry weight when spoken aloud, a cadence that comes from repetition and from the knowledge that monks in 100 monasteries across Christendom are hearing these same words. Second, then the prior, Prior Bernard, a thin, precise man with a close-cropped beard that is going grey at the edges, reads the names from the necrology. The book he reads from is large and old, its leather cover darkened with age and handling, its pages thick and slightly warped at the edges. The names are in a column on each page, one name per day of the year. Prior Bernard reads them in a tone that is neutral and unhurried, some from the previous century, some from the century before that. Some were abbots of this very house, some were simple brothers who spent their lives at tasks not very different from the tasks Brother Elias will perform today. The names are read, they pass through the room and into the air and dissolve. The monks bow their heads briefly. Third, the chapter of faults. A young novice comes forward and kneels on the stone floor in the center of the room. He is perhaps 16 years old, round-faced, slightly red in the cheeks with the cold, or with embarrassment, or both. He confesses that he was found laughing in the cloister walk during the great silence 3 nights ago. He does not say what he was laughing at. He is not asked. He is assigned 20 prostrations and the recitation of Psalm 51 3 times. Abbot Raymond hears this and responds in a measured, unhurried tone, not harsh, the tone of a man explaining something he considers genuinely important. The novice bows his head. He says, "Pax," peace. He rises. He returns to his seat. Brother Elias watches him with something that is not quite sympathy and not quite amusement, a kind of recognition. He remembers being 16. He remembers the quality of that particular laughter, the helpless, rising thing that comes up from nowhere and refuses to be suppressed, the way some feelings refuse to be suppressed, no matter how much practice one has at suppressing things. He looks back at the floor. The chapter concludes. The scriptorium is on the upper floor of the east range of the cloister. It is a long, narrow room with windows on the south side, covered now in late bottom with oiled linen that lets light through, but not air. The light that comes through is diffused and white and even. It casts no shadows. Everything in the room is lit at the same intensity from approximately the same direction. For writing, this is excellent. The desks stand along the south wall, beneath the windows. Each desk is a slanted wooden surface, like a lectern, angled toward the writer, on a simple wooden frame. The slope of the surface is steep enough to bring the parchment close to the writer's face without requiring him to hunch, and gentle enough that the ink does not run. There are perhaps 14 desks in the scriptorium. Not all of them are occupied every day. The monks are assigned to the scriptorium according to their skills and the current needs of the abbey's library, and some are rotated in and out on different days. Today there are 8 monks at work. Some are copying manuscripts, as Brother Elias is. One is working on illumination, the decoration of an initial letter in red and blue. the colored inks in small ceramic pots arranged in a precise row beside the desk. One is pricking new parchment sheets with a small awl to begin the process of ruling. Brother Elias sits at his desk. His tools are arranged exactly as he left them yesterday. The quills in a small clay pot, the inkhorn with its cork stopper, the penknife in its leather sheath, the pumice stone beside the penknife. He lifts the cork from the inkhorn. The smell of the ink rises immediately. Iron gall, tannic acid from oak galls, gum arabic, iron sulfate. It is not a pleasant smell exactly, but it is deeply familiar, and familiarity transforms almost any smell. This smell means work is beginning. This smell means the morning is properly underway. The quill is a primary flight feather of a goose, large, curved, with a strong hollow shaft. The barbs of the upper portion of the feather have been stripped away, leaving the lower 3 or 4 inches of bare shaft as the handle. The shaft has been dried and hardened, soaked briefly in hot sand or warm ash to set it, so that it does not bend under the pressure of writing. The nib at the tip is cut with his penknife to a sharp point, split down the center into 2 tines that flex slightly as they contact the parchment and snap back when they lift. He examines the nib in the white light from the window. It is good. He cut it fresh at the end of yesterday's session, a habit of long practice, preparing his future self for an easy start. He dips the quill. He draws it out slowly, and the ink clings to the nib in a small convex drop, enough for 3 or 4 letters. He taps the nib once against the inside of the horn, very lightly, to release the excess. Tap. He holds the quill over the parchment. He begins. The first stroke of the morning is always the best. The nib is sharp and clean. The ink is fresh. The parchment is smooth. The line that appears is dark and precise. The upper left arc of a capital D, the first letter of a new section of the commentary. Dark black with a very slight brownish cast at the edges where it has spread fractionally into the parchment fibers. Dark black with very slight brownish cast. Clean.
Exactly what he intended. He builds the letter. The D in this hand, Caroline minuscule, formal bookhand, is formed by a series of deliberate strokes. The curved main body, the straight vertical staff of small finishing serif at top and bottom. Each stroke has its proper angle, its proper pressure, its proper speed. Too fast and then the ib skates and the line thins to nothing. Too slow and the ink saturates the parchment and bleeds beyond the intended line. The correct speed produces a line of consistent width with clean edges. He moves to the next letter and the next. The text he is copying is a commentary on the Psalms, a long, dense theological work in careful, formal Latin. He is perhaps a third of the way through the project, which he has been working on since spring. He copies it because books are precious and rare, and the abbey needs its own copy for its library. Every copy made by hand is a unique object, a product of one man's attention and skill over months or years of work. He does not read critically as he copies. He is not a commentator. He is a copyist. His job is to reproduce the text accurately, to transmit it faithfully from the exemplar to the new manuscript his abbey will own. Any mistake he makes will be in this abbey's copy forever, or until someone notices and corrects it. This responsibility produces a particular quality of attention, not the engaged attention of a man reading for understanding, but the precise attention of a man reading to reproduce,
checking each word, each abbreviation, each punctuation mark against the original. The room around him is quiet in the way that working rooms are quiet when everyone in them is focused. Not empty quiet, not the hollow quiet of a room with no one in it, the thickened, inhabited quiet of people concentrating, a quiet that has the presence of minds in it, the weight of focused attention, the faint scratch of pen on parchment, the occasional soft knock of an inkhorn set back down on the desk, the quiet rustle of a page being turned in an exemplar. No one speaks. Brother Elias writes. At approximately halfway point of the morning, he makes an error, copies a clause twice, realizing it only at the end when the sentence that follows does not make sense. He sets down the quill. He takes the penknife from its sheath. The penknife is small, its blade perhaps 3 fingers long, narrow, the edge very sharp. He holds the parchment carefully with his left hand, pressing it flat but gently. He angles the blade at approximately 15 degrees to the surface, very shallow, almost parallel to the parchment. He draws it across the duplicate clause in short, careful strokes. The dried ink comes up in tiny flakes. He has done this many times. He has also, twice in his younger years, pressed too hard and cut through the parchment entirely, ruining a page that was not his to ruin. The memory of the master of the scriptorium's expression at that moment is sufficient, even now, to make him careful. The dried ink comes up in tiny flakes. The parchment surface becomes lighter, then whiter, then rough and slightly fibrous where the top layer of the skin has been abraded away. He works slowly. He does not press hard. The danger is in pressing too hard, and the blade goes through the top layer of the parchment into the body of the skin and makes a hole that cannot be written over, and the page is damaged beyond repair. He has done this twice in his life, both times as a younger man. Once he ruined a page that was not his to ruin. The memory of the master of the scriptorium's expression at that moment is sufficient even now to make him careful. He blows gently to clear the dust. He dips the quill and writes the clause again, correctly. The correction is barely visible. In 100 years, a reader will see it and know that a monk made a mistake here and corrected it, and will know nothing else about that monk, not his name, not his face, not whether his knees ached in the cold. By the time Sext rings at noon, he has produced 3.5 folio pages of clean, accurate text. He stoppers the inkhorn. He descends to the church, sings the short midday office, and then walks in the cloister. The cloister walk is the covered corridor running around all 4 sides of the square garden, a transitional space, a space of passage, but also a space for walking during the small periods of free time in the day. The garden in late autumn is mostly brown and gray. The lavender stalks are woody and bare. The thyme is still present, low and tough and surviving, its small leaves releasing their smell when trodden. The rosemary bush in the northwest corner is substantial and green, thick at the base, an old bush planted before Brother Elias came to the abbey. The garden in the center of the cloister is approximately 12 paces by 12 paces. It has a stone border, a central well, and is divided by narrow stone paths into 4 quadrants, each planted with herbs and useful plants. In summer, the garden smells of lavender and sage and thyme and rosemary, and there are simple flowers, marigold, fennel, borage, that the infirmarian does not need, but that the bees visit and provide a small, uncomplicated pleasure. Now, in late autumn, the garden is mostly brown and gray. The lavender stalks are woody and bare. The thyme is still present, low and tough and surviving, its small leaves releasing their smell when trodden.
The rosemary bush in the northwest corner is substantial and green and would survive a harsher winter than this one. It is an old bush planted before Brother Elias came to the abbey, thick at the base and branching in all directions. The cloister walk is the covered corridor that runs around all four sides of the square cloister garden. It is the main artery of the abbey, connecting the church to the chapter house, to the refectory, to the ranges where the monks work and sleep. At any hour of the day, a monk moving between one obligation and another will pass through the cloister walk. It is a transitional space, a space of passage, but it is also a space for walking. The Benedictine rule explicitly mentions that monks may walk in the cloister during the small periods of free time in the day, as exercise and as a form of mobile contemplation. He makes his circuits. 1, 2, 3. He stops at the rosemary bush and runs the backs of his fingers along a branch. The leaves are narrow and firm, slightly waxy, and they release their smell at the lightest touch, sharp, resinous, slightly medicinal, a smell that cannot be described except as itself. He has been doing this for 15 years. The smell is always exactly the same. He finds the spot in the covered walk where the winter sun, low in the sky, shines through a south-facing arch and falls on one particular patch of stone floor. He stands in this small rectangle of sunlight. He does not think about anything in particular. He simply stands until the bell calls him to dinner. The refectory is a long room with wooden trestle tables and a lectern at the far end, where one monk stands to read aloud while the others eat. This practice, the refectory reading, ensures the meal is not given over entirely to bodily nourishment, but feeds the mind and soul as well. Today, the reader is reading from the dialogues of Gregory the Great, stories of the saints told in a warm and narrative style. The Latin is clear. He reads steadily, without drama, at a pace that can be followed and absorbed. The food is brought in. The kitchen is adjacent to the refectory, and the lay brothers, the less educated members of the community who handle most of the physical labor, carry the food in on wooden trays. Today, the first dish is a thick soup, a pottage, properly speaking, made from dried peas boiled to softness in water with leeks and a small amount of salt and a smear of fat rendered from the last pig slaughtered in October, whose bones have been simmering in a pot at the back of the kitchen since yesterday. The soup is thick and pale and slightly green from the leeks, and it arrives in the bowl very hot, steaming visibly in the cold air of the refectory. First, a thick pottage, dried peas boiled to softness in water with leeks and a smear of fat rendered from the pig slaughtered in October, whose bones have been simmering since yesterday. The soup arrives very hot, steaming visibly in the cold air of the refectory. Brother Elias lowers his face toward the bowl, and the steam rises to meet him. It smells of the peas, dense, starchy, slightly sweet, and of the leeks, and underneath that, the faint savouriness of the bone broth. He cakes a piece of rye bread, dark and dense, slightly sour from the starter, and tears it. The sound is a dull, soft tearing. He dips it into the soup, and the bread absorbs the liquid quickly, becoming soft and warm and starchy, and he eats it like this, soaked, which is the best way to eat this bread in this season. There is a second dish, roasted turnips, quartered, their cut sides browned and sweetened from the heat, with a little salt
and rendered fat. The roasting has changed them, drawn out the bitterness and left the sweetness. He eats them carefully. There is not quite enough. There is never quite enough. He does not think this with resentment. The rule specifies the quantities of food, and the kitchen follows the rule, and the quantities are calculated to sustain a man without excess. Excess, the rule suggests, leads to heaviness of body and heaviness of spirit, the spiritual torpor that the monks call Acadia, that particular form of spiritual laziness and dissatisfaction that is considered one of the greatest dangers of monastic life. A man who is slightly hungry is more alert, more present, more attentive than a man who is completely full. At least, this is the theory. Brother Elias is not entirely sure on most days that it is correct, but he accepts it. Excess leads to heaviness of body and spirit. He does not think this with resentment. He accepts it. He eats the turnips. He does not think about what he would rather eat. The reader at the lectern continues. Gregory is describing a monk sustained by a hermit who lowered food to him on a rope each day. One day the hermit forgot. A stranger appeared with food. The stranger was an angel. The reader reads this in the same steady tone he would use to read a list of supplies. The words carry their own weight without assistance. The meal ends when the abbot rises. In the afternoon, Brother Elias works in the cellarium, the storage rooms beneath the West Range, half underground, walls thicker than elsewhere, the temperature cool in summer and only moderately cold now. The smell is complex, the woody sweet smell of stored grain, the sour yeast smell of ale barrels along one wall, the earthier smell of root vegetables stored in sand in low wooden bins, the sharper smell of cheese aging on shelves in a corner.
Of hard cheese wrapped in cloth on wooden shelves. The dusty, spicy smell of dried herbs in linen bags hanging from the ceiling. He works through the inventory with a wax tablet and stylus, checking quantities against the records from the previous week, calculating how long the remaining stores will last. The grain concerns him. The harvest this year was adequate, but not generous. The summer was wet, and the rye did not yield well. The bins are full enough, but if the winter runs long into March or April, as bad winters sometimes do, there will be difficulty in February. He notes this on the tablet. He will speak to the prior. The ale is fine. The cheese is fine. The herbs are slightly low on sage. He notes the sage. He moves through the cellarium steadily, not rushing. There is a particular satisfaction in this work that is not intellectual, but is real. The stocks are either sufficient or they are not. The numbers say what they say. He works until the bell for vespers calls him back. It is dark now, or nearly dark. The sun set perhaps 40 minutes ago. In November, in the south of France, the sun leaves early and without ceremony. The monks have been lighting candles in the church in preparation. The candlelight is warm and yellow and slightly uncertain, each flame moving slightly in the small currents of air the monks create as they enter, each flame casting its moving shadow on the stone around it. The stone walls of the church in candlelight are gold, warm, uneven, varying in depth where carved surfaces catch or lose the light. The pillars are gold. The faces of the monks in the choir stalls are gold. Vespers is one of the major offices. It has a gravity that the smaller daytime offices do not. The psalms of Vespers are the evening psalms, the psalms about the end of the day, about darkness falling, about trust maintained through the night ahead. Then the Magnificat,
This is the Canticle of Mary, the song she is described as singing in the Gospel of Luke when she visits her cousin Elizabeth and is told that the child she carries will be great. It has been sung at Vespers in Christian monasteries and churches every day for centuries. The melody assigned to it, one of the great antiphonal tones, rising and falling through a slow, arching range, has been sung at Vespers in Christian monasteries every single day for centuries. The voices of 40 monks carry it through the candlelit church. The stone holds it and gives it back. The voices of 40 monks singing this melody in a stone church in candlelight produce a sound that is difficult to describe and impossible to reproduce. There are no instruments. There is no harmony in the modern sense. The voices are moving in unison along a single melodic line, and yet the line is not simple. It is enriched by the different vocal qualities of 40 different men, the basses adding depth at the bottom, the lighter voices carrying the melody at the top, and the whole producing something that is more than the sum of its parts in a way that is not metaphorical. Brother Elias is not thinking about the grain inventory. He is not thinking about the cold in his back, or the candle in the third sconce, or the manuscript, or anything at all. He is singing. This is the closest he comes most days to the state the theologians describe as contemplation, not a state of emptiness or special experience, but simply this, being entirely present in what he is doing, without remainder. When Vespers ends, the monks sit for a moment in the silence that follows. The silence after Vespers is different from the silence before it. Before, it is the silence of waiting. After, it is the silence of something completed, something offered. A silence that holds the echo of the music without producing any actual sound. Then they rise. They file out. Supper is brief and cold, bread and hard cheese on wooden boards. The cheese is aged and dense, salty and sharp, pale yellow with a darker rind. He tears a small piece of bread and cuts a smaller piece of cheese with the plain iron knife at his place. He eats the cheese. The sharpness spreads from the back of his tongue forward as he chews. He eats the bread with it. He drinks the weak ale as one drinks water because he is thirsty. Tonight is a passage from the letters of St. Paul, the 12th chapter of the first letter to the Corinthians, concerning the gifts of the Spirit and the nature of the body of Christ. Now there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. The Latin translation this reader uses is the Vulgate, the version made by Jerome in the 4th century that has been the standard text of Western Christianity for 700 years. The language is Latin, but it is not the Latin of the classical writers. It is a slightly different Latin, simpler in construction, more vernacular in idiom, the Latin of a man who was translating not for literary elegance, but for comprehension. Brother Elias eats his bread. After supper, collatio, the evening reading in the chapter house.
Tonight, the abbot reads from the sayings of the Desert Fathers, a collection of brief, elliptical wisdom sayings from the early Christian hermits of Egypt and Syria. His voice is quiet and carries clearly in the small room. The sayings are brief and do not explain themselves. A brother asked an elder, "What shall I do, for I am troubled?" The elder said, "Be at peace in your cell. All that you need will come to you there." Another saying, a brother asked, "How can I resist temptation?" The elder said, "I do not know how to resist it. I know only how to return." Brother Elias sits on the stone bench. The sayings are read. They sit in the air of the room briefly.
they end. More are read. The collatio lasts perhaps 20 minutes. Then the abbot closes the book. They move to the church for Compline. It is the shortest of all the offices, 30 minutes perhaps on an ordinary night. The Psalms of Compline are the Psalms of protection in darkness. I will lie down and sleep in peace. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 4. I will bless the Lord, all you servants of the Lord, who stand by night in the house of the Lord. The church is lit by very few candles, just the altar and a single light in the choir. The darkness in the corners is deep. The high windows are completely black. The monks enter in a silence that is already different from the silence of other offices, because what comes after Compline is the great silence, the silence that will not be broken until after Lord's tomorrow morning. Their entry has a different quality, more careful, more deliberate, as if stepping across a threshold into a different kind of time. The Psalms of Compline are the Psalms of protection in darkness. I will lie down and sleep in peace. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. The whole office has a quality of quietness that is not merely obedience to a rule, but something like the natural lowering of voice and breath that the late hour produces in any human being. Even men who are not monks lower their voices at this hour. The reading at Compline is always the same, every night, without variation. Brothers, be sober and watchful, because your adversary the devil goes about like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Resist him, steadfast in faith. These words have been read at Compline in Benedictine monasteries every night for 500 years. They will be read again tomorrow night and the night after that. Then comes the Salve Regina. The cantor begins alone in the half-dark. His voice in the candlelit church is a single thread of sound. Salve Regina, Mater Misericordiae. Hail, Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy. And the community joins. The antiphon to the Virgin Mary moves through the church. The melody climbs in the phrase Ad te suspiramus, and then descends again, like the movement of something reaching upward and coming back. Brother Elias is tired. His back aches in the steady way of a body that has been used all day and is now being allowed to rest. His hands are slightly stiff from the cold and the pen. He is mildly hungry, and he sings. When the salve ends, Abbot Raymond takes the aspergillum and moves along the choir stalls, sprinkling each monk with holy water. The water is cold. The brush of the aspergillum is light and quick, a touch, a scatter of cold drops. Each monk bows his head. The cold drops fall. Then it is done. The office is over. The day is over. The monks file out in silence, through the cloister walk, up the night stair. The great silence has begun. Brother Elias goes to his bed. He removes his sandals and sets them beside the bed, to the left, at the precise angle that will allow his hand to find them in the dark at 2 in the morning without searching. This is not a conscious decision. It is a habit. The sandals go here. They have always gone here. They will go here tomorrow night and every night after that. He lies down. The straw mattress receives his weight with its familiar slight settling, its familiar sound, a dry, shifting sound, the straw compressing and redistributing. The straw has been compressed to the shape of his body over months and years of sleeping, until it fits him now the way an old glove fits, not perfectly, not without its lumps and patches, but correctly,
in the way of things shaped by long use into an exact fit for the life that uses them. He pulls the blanket up to his chin. The weight of it is real and substantial and immediately warm. He closes his eyes. The dormitory performs its small ceremony of settling around him. The sounds of men lying down, straw rustling, blankets pulled up, a cough, quiet and brief, quickly suppressed. Then the sounds slow and thin, and the spaces between them lengthen, and then they stop altogether, or nearly stop, or become distinguishable from the general quiet of the room at rest. He does not try to sleep. He has learned over many years that trying to sleep is the wrong approach. The body finds sleep when it is left alone to find it, not when it is instructed. He lies in the dark and breathes and allows his mind to do what it does, which is to move through the day just finished in no particular order, without agenda. Tonight, the abbot reads from the sayings of the Desert Fathers, a collection of brief, elliptical wisdom sayings from the early Christian hermits of Egypt and Syria. His voice is quiet and carries clearly in the small room. The sayings are brief and do not explain themselves. A brother asked an elder, "What shall I do, for I am troubled?" The elder said, "Be at peace in your cell. All that you need will come to you there." Another saying, a brother asked, "How can I resist temptation?" The elder said, "I do not know how to resist it. I know only how to return." Brother Elias sits on the stone bench. The sayings are read. They sit in the air of the room briefly. They end. More are read. The collatio lasts perhaps 20 minutes. Then the abbot closes the book. They move to the church for Compline. It is the shortest of all the offices, 30 minutes perhaps on an ordinary night. The Psalms of Compline are the Psalms of protection in darkness. I will lie down and sleep in peace. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 4. I will bless the Lord, all you servants of the Lord, who stand by night in the house of the Lord. The church is lit by very few candles, just the altar and a single light in the choir. The darkness in the corners is deep. The high windows are completely black. The monks enter in a silence that is already different from the silence of other offices, because what comes after Compline is the great silence, the silence that will not be broken until after Lord's tomorrow morning. Their entry has a different quality, more careful, more deliberate, as if stepping across a threshold into a different kind of time. The Psalms of Compline are the Psalms of protection in darkness. I will lie down and sleep in peace. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. The whole office has a quality of quietness that is not merely obedience to a rule, but something like the natural lowering of voice and breath that the late hour produces in any human being. Even men who are not monks lower their voices at this hour. The reading at Compline is always the same, every night, without variation. Brothers, be sober and watchful, because your adversary the devil goes about like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Resist him, steadfast in faith. These words have been read at Compline in Benedictine monasteries every night for 500 years. They will be read again tomorrow night and the night after that. Then comes the Salve Regina. The cantor begins alone in the half-dark. His voice in the candlelit church is a single thread of sound. Salve Regina, Mater Misericordiae. Hail, Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy. And the community joins. The antiphon to the Virgin Mary moves through the church. The melody climbs in the phrase ad te suspiramus and then descends again, like the movement of something reaching upward and coming back. Brother Elias is tired. His back aches in the steady way of a body that has been used all day and is now being allowed to rest. His hands are slightly stiff from the cold and the pen. He is mildly hungry, and he sings. When the salve ends, Abbot Raymond takes the aspergillum and moves along the choir stalls, sprinkling each monk with holy water. The water is cold. The brush of the aspergillum is light and quick, a touch, a scatter of cold drops. Each monk bows his head. The cold drops fall. Then it is done. The office is over. The day is over. The monks file out in silence, through the cloister walk, up the night stair. The great silence has begun. Brother Elias goes to his bed. He removes his sandals and sets them beside the bed, to the left, at the precise angle that will allow his hand to find them in the dark at 2 in the morning without searching. This is not a conscious decision. It is a habit. The sandals go here. They have always gone here. They will go here tomorrow night and every night after that. He lies down. The straw mattress receives his weight with its familiar slight settling, its familiar sound, a dry, shifting sound, the straw compressing and redistributing. The straw has been compressed to the shape of his body over months and years of sleeping, until it fits him now the way an old glove fits, not perfectly, not without its lumps and patches, but correctly, in the way of things shaped by long use into an exact fit for the life that uses them. He pulls the blanket up to his chin. The weight of it is real and substantial and immediately warm. He closes his eyes. The dormitory performs its small ceremony of settling around him. The sounds of men lying down, straw rustling, blankets pulled up, a cough, quiet and brief, quickly suppressed. Then the sounds slow and thin, and the spaces between them lengthen, and then they stop altogether, or nearly stop, or become distinguishable from the general quiet of the room at rest. He does not try to sleep. He has learned over many years that trying to sleep is the wrong approach. The body finds sleep when it is left alone to find it, not when it is instructed. He lies in the dark and breathes and allows his mind to do what it does, which is to move through the day just finished in no particular order, without agenda. The grain inventory and the February concern that sits in his mind with a low, steady unease, not alarm, but the quality of a number that is not quite comfortable. He will speak to the prior tomorrow. The prior is a practical man. He will either confirm the concern or show where the calculation is wrong. Either outcome is acceptable. The important thing is to have the conversation. The ink stain on the third finger of his right hand, he can feel it even now, a slightly different texture on the skin where the iron gall has stained the surface of the fingertip. He has had this stain in this location essentially continuously for 20 years. The ink always goes here. The pressure of the quill, held in this particular way, deposits ink at this particular point. Washing removes the fresh ink, but not the accumulated residue of years. The stain is now part of the finger. The novice's round red face in the chapter this morning, the laughter and the great silence, whatever caused it, something trivial probably. He remembers being 16. He does not remember the specific moments, but he remembers the feeling of that year, the body still arranging itself, the hours of the day not yet absorbed into the body's natural rhythm. He does not remember when they became natural. It was gradual. There was no morning he woke and thought, now this is natural. There was only the long sequence of mornings, each one barely different from the one before, until at some point the morning was simply the morning, not a task to be performed, but the texture of being awake. He breathes. The dormitory is quiet now. The monks around him are sleeping or nearly sleeping. The cold of the room is a steady, even cold, not getting worse, not getting better. His body has established its equilibrium with the blanket, the warmth of his body contained under the wool, the cold of the air outside it. He is neither hot nor cold. He is the right temperature for sleep. The moon has risen. He can tell from the pale rectangles that have appeared on the dormitory floor, 4 of them corresponding to the 4 narrow windows in the south wall, very faint, only barely visible. By midnight, they will have crossed the floor entirely and climbed the far wall and disappeared. The dormitory will be completely dark. The monks will be sleeping. The valley outside will be cold and still. He breathes, slowly. The cold air of the room enters his lungs and returns, slightly warmer, slightly changed. The wool blanket presses gently against his chest. His back aches, but it is the comfortable ache of a body that has been used. It will be worse tomorrow morning, in the first minutes of rising, as it is always worse then. Then it will ease as he moves. Somewhere on the other side of the stone wall, in the valley outside, a small river runs. It has been running past this abbey since before the abbey existed. It will be running tomorrow morning when the bell rings at 2, and will be running long after every man in this dormitory has become a name in the necrology, or not even that. He breathes in, he breathes out. The dormitory is dark and cold and quiet, and at 2 in the morning the bell will ring, low, round, patient, spreading out across the dark valley like ripples across still water, and he will rise. He will put his feet on the cold floor. He will find his sandals. He will walk down the night stair to the church. He will sing. This is what a day looked like. Not every day in the 12th century, not every monastery in France. This particular monastery, this particular monk, this particular autumn approaching winter, somewhere in the south of the country, in the year 1147. A year like most years, neither catastrophic nor especially good. A year of ordinary difficulties and ordinary small satisfactions. A year that would not be remembered by historians for anything that happened in this valley. No kings came here. No battles were fought nearby. No miracles were recorded that year in the abbey's annals. Brother Elias copied his commentary on the Psalms. He counted the grain. He ate his soup. He walked in the cloister garden and ran his fingers over the rosemary in the cold morning air. He sang the hours. He went to sleep. He got up. He sang again. The ink he laid down is dry now, completely, thoroughly, permanently dry, dried for 900 years, if the manuscripts survived. Some of them did. Some are in libraries today, in climate-controlled rooms behind glass, occasionally examined by scholars who study the particular handwriting and try to identify which scriptorium produced them. The scholars can sometimes identify a hand. They recognize the way a monk formed his letters, the angle of his strokes, the spacing, but they cannot tell you his name, usually not. The monks who copied these texts are anonymous because they intended to be anonymous, because the work was for God, not for their own recognition, and putting your name on a manuscript you had copied was a statement of pride that the rule discouraged. So Brother Elias is not in the historical record, but the soup was hot, and the cold of the floor was real, and the bell rang at 2 in the morning with that low, round, patient sound, and he rose, because that is what there was to do. And that is enough.